Jay, Glenn, congratulations for Blackberry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
This film is so captivating. I mean, I thought I knew the story, and after watching this film, I guess I didn't know the story. So tell us what initially drew you to this project. Glenn, why don't you start first?
The script really was the script that drew me to it initially. And then I became more familiar with Matt Johnson's work and was so incredibly impressed with the things that he'd done prior to Blackberry. And then in talking to Matt, he just seemed like he had a really good grasp on exactly what he wanted to do with the film. How he was seeing it was the same way I was seeing it. So it felt like there was a lot of simpatico, and he's just I think he's just kind of a brilliant guy. And I was just excited to work with him. I mean, I think maybe it's the thing. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but I think it's kind of the same for Jay. Like, I mean, that was probably the biggest draw was Matt Johnson and his cohorts.
Yeah, indeed. I've been a fan of Matt's since his first movie, since The Dirties, and I, was somebody that I'd always kind of wanted to work with, and then like we kind of knew each other for a while as well, and then I was like, I was just like, oh, so the shittiest or the hokiest part of the whole thing is like I was an actual like Blackberry user, which is such a like. I've had to say that a lot, which is like such an embarrassing thing to keep talking about how much I liked the fucking product that I bought, but I did, and so I was like a Blackberry guy until relatively recently, and then they wrote a hell of a script. Matt wrote a fucking crazy good script, and so I was like, if we do half of what's on the page, we're gonna have a spectacular film, and I knew as we were doing it that we were onto something special, whether or not. Like I knew we would be proud of what we did, no matter what. Whether or not the world would notice it, I never have a bead on. I never have any idea. I'm living and working in Canada. You just get sort of accustomed to toiling in anonymity, and so it's been pretty sick that like people seem to dig the thing a lot, and like we're down here talking about it and stuff. So really, really proud of it.
Well, I guess it is technically a Canadian story itself, since it was a Canadian company. But how much of the original story did you know, and what actually surprised you?
I knew that Jim Balsillie was trying to bring a hockey team back to Canada, and I remember that news cycle vividly. He became a legitimate kind of cult hero for us, and I knew that it was a product designed and manufactured for the most part in Canada, and so that was a special thing. So I didn't know all of the crazy shit behind the scenes. I didn't know that the like American like stock exchange commission like went up to Waterloo with like warrants and stuff. Like I didn't know about hijacking Verizon's towers and all this, like all of that kind of real punk rock shit I didn't know about.
I really didn't know anything about the story behind it. I was unlike Jay. I was not a Blackberry user. And so was not, but I think, I mean, even most Blackberry users don't even really know the backstory behind it. So I don't know that that's really much of a factor, but I really honestly knew absolutely nothing, shockingly little, considering how influential the product was, how, it shifted the entire landscape of communications. I was kind of shocked that I didn't know anything about the story, but I knew nothing.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I owned the Blackberry once, and I think I left Blackberry after the outage or something like that. That's all I remembered.
Oh, you did? That's the thing that threw you, huh? I was like,
well, I mean, I guess it was something like they guaranteed access, but you know what? I wasn't like what did they call it, Crackberry? I wasn't really on it too much, and it was like much more like a business person. It was like a business person persona for Blackberry back then.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But I do want to talk about your characters, because you guys totally transformed into these characters.
Thank you.
And I didn't realize how Mike and Jim were like polar opposites of each other. Can you guys talk about like how you got into those characters, and then was it hard to portray Mike and Jim?
I mean, it was hard insofar as it definitely takes a lot of you burn a lot. I burn a lot of calories
Yeah,
to
no
play
shit.
playing Jim. Um, but I mean, I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer. Like how did I prepare, or how to prepare for things? Like I feel like I'm constantly trying to figure out how to prepare for things. I don't know if you feel the same way, Jay. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
There's no process.
no, it's like there
Yeah.
is. It's like you have ideas about how to approach it, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's all just what it comes down to. At the end of the day, look, of course, I did, all the research that I could possibly do. And all the thinking about sort of the backstory of the character. You do all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like you're really a kid in a sandbox, and it's like you gotta just kind of pretend you're the guy. It's like, I mean, it sounds so stupid,
No, it
but
is. That's it.
it's like Ian McKellen in Extras. He's like, and then you pretend to be the guy. Um,
No, that's it. Yeah, that's spot on. It's just cops and robbers. It's just playing in the backyard with your friends, and I just like you hope, but the only thing that really will make that an enjoyable thing to do and a rewarding thing to do or not is if you have a director that you like kind of jamming with. When you don't, then it's just a fucking root canal through 35 days plus of shooting, right? And so we had a spectacular filmmaker behind all of it who also wrote a lot of that script. And so when you're working, when you're jamming with somebody that kind of created the thing, you just get more of a freedom and a license, because he's not precious at all. Matt Johnson is many things, but precious isn't one of them. And so it was always best idea wins. And so for me, the homework is the same every time. It feels like I've never done it before. Every time I feel like I'm kind of starting completely new, and every time it's exactly the same gig, which is just try to be as truthful to the page as you can be, and hopefully find some good moments with the director. And that's like a really annoying, not soundbitey actor answer, but that's the kind of thing. Is like you hope to God you have someone like Glenn that you get on with, and you hope to God you have someone like Matt that you trust, and that in that little kind of laboratory you're gonna write some good songs.
So, in the back of your mind, you are playing real people. How do you guys feel about that? And in the end, do you admire the characters that you play?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly admire what they were able to accomplish. I mean, the good thing is it didn't feel like there was so much footage of either one of these guys out there that I don't think either one of us felt compelled to, try and copy the mannerisms of the character or anything like that. It was really more about understanding their motivations and really kind of being on the same page with Matt about the vision of like the story as a whole, and how to use the character to service the story as a whole. I mean, because I mean, I think it would have been it adds an extra layer of challenge when you have to emulate the person in some way, and we didn't feel like we needed to really do that.
Yeah, we weren't kind of at the risk of sounding too much like an asshole, we weren't kind of trying to SNL it. We weren't trying to do just impressions, because also, by the way, there aren't sort of cult of personalities around these guys like there are around sort of Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or Elon or any of these guys that I wish I weren't household names. I wish I'd never heard of. So these guys aren't that. And but there's a responsibility. There's absolutely a responsibility, because you don't ever want to do a thing that this person would absolutely be diametrically opposed to, and you don't want to put words necessarily, you don't want to put ideas in their head or words in their mouth that there isn't a reasonable assumption they might have actually had. And but like I'd say Glenn had to deal with that stuff more, because Jim was the face of the company out and about. Mike was and still is, you know, a bit of the sort of Brian Wilson. You know, there like there's not a ton of footage of him. There's not a ton of interviews. He wasn't that guy. So I wanted to honor what he did, but really, I wasn't reading transcripts. I was playing a character based on a script, off of a script, right? And so we had to be truthful to the guys on the page and trust that the two Matts knew would understand the sort of what do you call it? Would be able to reconcile any differences between the sort of dramatic Mike and Jim versus the real ones, you know. And the two Matts did their homework, you know. They're sort of Wikipedias of this whole stuff, and so it goes back to trusting the script.
Most excellent. Well, let me leave with one final thought. Can you guys remark about your hair game or the lack of hair game for this film?
Yeah, I have nothing but respect for Glenn, who literally shaved the middle of his fucking head every single morning. Like you know, I can't stress that enough. Like, when you get north of 40, you never know how many of these good days you have left, right? And so to play blackjack, high stake Russian roulette every morning with your hair is fucking crazy. I hated wearing a wig, but I didn't have to fucking shave my head and know that it might never come back. So that was pretty ballsy.
I was definitely always feeling the stubble. I'm like making sure the stubble was there, you know. But it was actually very liberating to not have a full head of hair. It does change you. It does change you.
Every bald guy's like, what the fuck did you just say? But yeah, it was fun. The sort of earnest answer to your question is, like, when you keep passing yourself in the mirror and you are that fucking different looking, it's like, it's hard not to make the kind of cops and robbers stuff kind of that more organic, because you just like you show up every day in your like vampire outfit from Halloween.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you know, the cops and robbers thing is a good example, but like, it really is true. It's like, I think the difference between maybe somebody who becomes an actor and a regular person when they played cops and robbers is, like, when I was playing cops and robbers as a kid, I think I took it like a lot more seriously than everybody else would say.
That's it.
You know what I mean? Like, get
That's
way more
it.
into it than
Yeah,
the
where
average
am I?
person.
Where am I coming at this from? Okay, so I'm a cop. My kid won't talk to me. Why? My wife left me. You know, the kids are just like, hey man, recess is almost over.
And one more thing. How about this? If Mike and Jim didn't make the mistakes that they actually made, do you think they would have a chance against Apple after all these years?
It's impossible to, like, I don't know how you could, like, but yes, potentially, but who's to say that Apple won't be them 20 years from now? Like, how do we know there won't be a new innovation that stands on the shoulders of everything Apple did that will make us all forget about the iPhone, right? Like, and so, yeah, hindsight, you know, is whatever it is. Which was the one 2020. I forget what number hindsight is, but anyway, it's easy to look back. Yeah, 2020. It's easy to look back and kind of wonder, like, oh, they made that mistake. They made that mistake. They failed at. They innovated and failed to keep innovating or something. But it's just like, it's bloody impossible, especially when you create the thing, to see how it could, you know, get shot down. So what do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible that had they been thinking ahead, I mean, they certainly had I think, like, given Mike's personality and what the BlackBerry meant to him, what he felt like it fundamentally was about, and what it was what it was meant to be used for. I don't know that the mindset was ever quite there to see where things were headed, because it just wasn't what he was trying to make. I mean, even in the very end, he was like, yeah, the iPhone is like it's like a toy, it's like a thing, but like, that's not what people want. What people want is this. And he just couldn't see it. So I don't know. I mean, he was certainly smart. They were all certainly smart enough to do it. It just didn't seem like their mindset was in the right place to do it.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah.
Well, whatever it is, you guys made a terrific film. I mean,
thank you.
I mean, I was so obsessed with this story, and it made me think of where's my Blackberry right now,
Wicked.
sitting in some kind of shelf. So you guys did wonderfully, and thank you
Thanks.
very much for this conversation. The only thing I know is that Mike and Jim made their money. That's what they did.
They certainly fucking did. Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thank you. Bye now.
Nice to meet you, Gig. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.